What's up, everybody, and happy holidays, as it is the most wonderful time of year indeed. Welcome back to Hops Geek News. We are a podcast that talks about comic books, movies, TV shows. Typically, we have a beer of the week that's featured. This week, we're going to be talking about the coveted unsung hero of Christmas films with our good friend from Cheap Seat Reviews, and that is going to be Die Hard 2. Yes, it is indeed a Christmas film, and we're going to go into on this essay and explain why. However, first things first, we do have some stuff to talk about, such as what we are drinking, what we've looked into over the last week that we might have messed up on, what we've been reading and watching, and we got a little bit of news for you first. So, if this is your first time listening to the show, go, hey, thanks. I hope you stick around. You can find us by searching Hops Geek News on every podcasting platform. Go on social media, any platform you can think of on social media. We are there, Hops Geek News. Don't worry, maybe we're even on Tinder too. If you swipe right on us, you're going to match with an excellent podcast. I don't know what's going on out there these days or what the cool kids are using, but we're probably on it. So leave a review, support us, patreon.com/hopsgeeknews. And with all of that fancy fun stuff aside, I'm not drinking a beer tonight. Spoiler alert, folks. I am not drinking a beer. I'm going to use my nice little Grinch mug that's right here. You might be able to see if you're watching the video that I post up on YouTube. I don't know. I got a green screen, so screw it. But I'm drinking eggnog. And if you're old like me, you're drinking not just any eggnog, it is the Silk dairy-free eggnog, which is actually way better than the real quote-unquote dairy-filled eggnog that's out there. Now, Lauren and I had a couple of beers to review and do for the Beer in Front podcast. However, the beers that I could get aren't ones that I can get in singles like PBR and Budweiser. And I'm not going to buy a six pack. So I didn't do that tonight. And I kind of coming off like a 1 week bender where I did nothing but drink liquor for like the last week. So my body kind of needs a break, I guess. And Lauren, though, welcome to the show. Hi. What are you drinking?
Hi.
Was that a PBR you pulled out?
Yeah, so we talked about this a little bit ago. I don't know if we just talked about it on Hops News or if we talked about it on the Geek Show. We're doing part of another podcast, who's a beer podcast, Beer in Front. And he asked a bunch of us to rate a bunch of beers. A lot of them are like classic, kind of original craft beers. So I'm going to be pulling out quite a few tonight. And I'm not going to promise that I'm going to drink them all, but I have a bunch of taster glasses here. If you're watching on the YouTube, you'll be able to see as I'm not going to drink a full PBR. I'm going to drink enough to rate it on aroma, appearance, taste, and overall. And, I've had these beers before. I think most of the beers that we're rating we've had before, but I've never stopped and took in the aroma and the appearance and whatnot of
That
a PBR.
Budweiser just so full of aroma and taste and
So
flavor.
good at Budweiser. Was Budweiser on the list? I didn't grab a Budweiser.
I think it was. I don't know. I know Miller
So
Lite wasn't
after,
Miller Lite like great taste, less filling, like those old Super Bowl commercials they used to have.
oh my gosh, I have a Miller Lite in the fridge from my stepdad because last
Hell
week was
yeah, brother.
Thanksgiving. Well, I have the PBRs are from my brother, and the Miller Lights are from my stepdad.
That's okay. You can admit to drinking PBR. We all do it. Go to a good show,
So
get a PBR. It's like $25 and enjoy.
exactly.
Well, that's exciting.
But yeah, that's what I got.
Cool. Well, we didn't mess up on anything last week, so that's pretty sweet. So we're gonna roll into
Well,
what
I'm
we've
sure
read
we
or
did,
watched. Yeah, I'm sure we did. I just nobody has told me otherwise. There, unless if they did, I just probably forgot. But what we've been reading or watching, we watched a couple of things. So I've watched The Grinch. You know how The Grinch stole Christmas. It's Christmas time, but there are two new pieces of Christmas media, if you will, that are out there. One of which is Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell's Spirited, which you can get on Apple TV. And it's basically a retelling of the Charles Dickens Christmas Carol story where Ryan Reynolds' character is a giant D bag, and Will Ferrell works with this really cool company. And basically, like he's a ghost. They go and they try to turn people around. They're redeemables, unredeemables, and Ryan Reynolds isn't unredeemable. So Will Ferrell sets out to be like, hey, I'm going to redeem him. Now, spoiler alert before we dive into a little bit more, because
I was gonna say don't spoil too much because I
I'm not
really
gonna
loved
no.
the
Yeah, I'm not
the
going to spoil too
unique
much. We'll
take
review
on
it.
it. Like I was like, oh my gosh, that was a really cool idea.
Yeah, it was a very
It was the
unique take.
Scrooge story like we've never seen before. The whole Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like a buddy
Um.
film of Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds going through this because Ryan Reynolds is unredeemable, and it's really, really fantastic.
I
It was
loved
great
it.
seeing Will Ferrell return to form Like he kind of fell off for a while. Like his movies just weren't really all that great. He kind of fell off here in the last 10 years or so, but this was like a return to form Will Ferrell film. I thought it was great. Ryan Reynolds was great as always. There was an elf Easter egg, of course, which was pretty funny.
Oh
I
my
won't
God.
spoil, but
It wasn't even subtle.
yeah, what were your thoughts? Give us some of your spoiler-free thoughts for this film. As you, which one is that? The PBR?
Yes, I just opened the PBR and my husband just walked in and just looked at me like, "What are you doing?
Me
Do you
too,
want some?"
Josh. Me too. So
That's why.
uncivilized.
Um, so I thought it was fantastic. I did not know that it was going to be like a full on musical. I thought Ryan
Me
Reynolds
neither.
and
Yeah.
Will Ferrell's chemistry is great together. We added the Good Afternoon song to our Christmas playlist today.
Good. Yes.
But
Good afternoon.
good afternoon. I thought that was a very clever way of getting to say fuck you over and
Yeah,
over in a
yeah,
Christmas
right. In
song
a
without
Christmas
getting an
song.
R rating.
Well, we watched it with the kids too, and the kids really enjoyed it. You know, the singing that I didn't expect it to be a musical either to the extent that it was. So when it was a musical, I was like, oh, wow, I'm really into this. And Will Ferrell, as you know, likes to actually sing and all that. And I think it was Ryan Reynolds singing. I don't know. What can't that perfect man do? It
Right?
was,
It was, I saw an interview with Ryan Reynolds and he's like, Will Ferrell's like so close to me. And then he's like telling me, like, nope, you missed that note. And he's like, it's so hard not to just like laugh when you're
yeah,
staring at Will Ferrell and singing to him.
yeah, that is true. So it's I really enjoyed it. And then the other one that we watched was, of course, the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, which is kind of like the epilogue to or epilogue, yeah, that's the word, right? To the Phase Four. It was the post-credit sequence to Marvel's Phase Four, if you will. It was
Oh, I
beautiful.
like that.
It was beautiful. I'm not as big a Guardians of the Galaxy fan as most people are, but this really pulled me in. Like it was a Mantis Drax buddy cop film, and I wasn't expecting to have that, and it had one of the biggest payoffs I think in the MCU with the gift that Nebula gives to Rocket during the Christmas gifts exchange, and I was like, "What?" And there was like this whole thing on Twitter, like, "How did they get this?" And James Gunn confirmed that it was indeed Bucky's arm, that Nebula was feeling Christmassy, and so she went to Earth and ripped it off his body to bring it to Rocket.
That should have been the end credit scene.
Yeah, it was amazing.
The
Like,
end credit scene was cute, but it would have been way more fun watching Nebula steal Bucky's arm.
I know, like, I have so many
Yeah, that was
questions about
adorable. I
how
loved
she
that
got in
too.
there. Yeah, how, like, so many questions. How did she steal his arm? Like, what did she do? And that's something that I almost
I
want to
added
see
all those
happen.
songs. Yes, 100%. There better be something later where he's upset she stole his arm, or I don't know, there
Yeah.
has to be something, or he's in Wakanda trying to like get more vibranium for a new arm or something.
it it was
Um,
also solid too. Like they were, oh, we hate actors. Oh, we hate you, Kevin. Like they were like, wait, you're not the actual hero. They're like, you're an actor. What? That was great.
so they had an interview with Kevin Bacon, and he said when he actually went to the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie when it was in theaters and had no idea that there was going to be like a whole scene based on his Footloose character, and he said he absolutely loved it. He left the movie and called his wife and was like, "There's you got to see this movie. There's a huge surprise in it. I'm not going to tell you what it is." So for him to get to experience that firsthand, and it was funny too in the interview. He goes, "Sometimes my life is just so weird," but then that he got to come back and play this character. And the soundtrack was great. I added all those songs to my playlist. So my Christmas playlist is really it's coming around. It's getting
It's
a little more
oh,
upbeat these days. It's not all Oh Holy Night.
you guys went Guardians Advent calendar too this year, didn't you?
Well, I don't know. The elf hasn't come yet, but I'm
Ah,
assuming that that's
yes,
the
yes, of
calendar
course.
to
We
bring. And
went.
I got to go on the Guardians of the Galaxy ride today at Epcot. And instead of like, there's 6 random songs. You get one. I always get Conga. And today it was Run, Run, Rocket. And I don't know what
Oh,
the next
cool.
line was. But yeah, I thought
Something.
that
Yeah,
was
I don't
cool.
remember. I It's because the original song's "Run, Run, Rudolph," right? Like, and I don't remember
Right.
the
And I was like,
original.
wait, they didn't say Rudolph. And like, you're going so fast on that ride. And I'm trying to like listen to the song and still enjoy the ride. And
There's so much
I tried to add
stimulation.
that to my playlist. I couldn't find it.
No, it's full of heart though. It
But
really
yeah, a lot of
is.
Guardians Christmas stuff.
Yeah. And it's cool. Like it really brought me around, and I thought the
But
some of the behind the scenes stuff was wicked awesome. So I really enjoyed that. You did read something though. What did you
Yes,
read?
both of those are now. Oh, what did I read? I'm still like both of those movies. I think Spirited will be one of those movies that you rewatch and it'll be better each time because you're going to
Oh
pick up
yeah,
more stuff.
without a doubt.
So this weekend I finished a book called Dark Disciple. It's a Star Wars
Yeah.
book. The main characters are Saj Ventress and Quinlan Voss. I
Yeah.
absolutely love this book. It just gets better and better and better. And like Quinlan after this, I was like, well, have I seen him before? I guess he's in the background in episode one. He's mentioned in the Obi-Wan series. He's in Rebels and Clone Wars, or just one of them. I can't remember. I know there's an animated
He's
version of
in
him.
he's in Clone Wars.
Okay. I think what would be really cool is if we're going to do all Star Wars in May, I would love to do like a whole episode on like some of these characters that are very minor, but also aren't as minor as we might think they are, and actually go through, their anything that's canon, whether it's comic book,
Yeah.
TV,
It's
movie.
it's one of my favorite Star Wars stories, honestly, too. And I really wish that it's based on an unproduced script from the Clone Wars, and I wish we had gotten to see that play out on screen because it is a very good, very, very good book. And you learn a lot. Like there's a lot in that story that progresses the overall
Uh huh.
Palpatine Anakin storyline and Clone Wars storyline. So it's kind of a shame that we didn't actually get to see that appear on screen.
Right. So yeah, the main premise, I'll just tell the beginning because I don't want to spoil it, because anybody who's into Star Wars at all, I highly recommend this. My cousin recommended it, and then you were like, "Oh yeah, that book's great." So I had two recommendations going into it.
Mine's I own the
Um,
Irish, but
so
that's fine.
that's right. My blood cousin doesn't matter.
There's only one
um,
of us here.
so the Jedi, that's fair. Hey, she listens. Shout
Oh,
out to
hey,
Tabby.
shout out.
So the Jedi decide that they are done with Dooku and they want to kill him, which is not the Jedi way with murdering. So I think right there it showed a lot about the Jedi and how they were, like you said before, going down this path and whatnot. And so they decide to have Quinlan Voss be the person to do it. And he's not just a Jedi. He can also, I forget the name, maybe you remember it, where he can touch things and like see the memory in the objects. And so he can like, feel like what the person was feeling, or, what happened the last time this, laptop was touched or whatever. And so Obi-Wan suggests that he team up with Asajj Ventress, who we've met in Clone Wars and Rebels. She was Dooku's apprentice until Dooku was like, "You're worthless, goodbye," and then she hated him.
Yep.
And their chemistry and everything, I just absolutely loved it. And that's all I will say, because I really don't want to say anything else without ruining it, because I kept being like, oh my gosh, what happens next? What happens next? And if I say any more, then you're already going to know. So go read it. Again, it's Star Wars Dark Disciple by Christy Golden.
Yeah. Great, great stuff. Before we kind of roll into our main topic, we just have a couple news pieces this week that we're going to roll into real quick. The first is that there was a new Super Mario trailer that came out today, actually, as we're recording this, and that movie looks like a lot of fun. Uh, but we have a kind of an issue, man. Just people can't be happy with anything. There's apparently a YouTuber out there whose name I'm not going to mention was very unhappy with the fact that Princess Peach wasn't just a damsel in distress, and Mario's kind
For
of
shame.
yeah, it's stupid. I don't want to put too much onto this, but just know everybody, it's okay for women to be strong and powerful and actually do things in movies and not just be the one in trouble all the time. So
What?
stop being so fragile once in a while and go touch some grass. So besides that, what do you have for news pieces before we go ahead and dive into Die Hard
I
2?
really don't have much at all. So James Gunn, who's now, co-chairman of DC Studios, has said that the DC universe will be connected across film, TV, animation, and video games, though they will still have some standalone DC projects that exist outside of the DC universe. I'm guessing like the Batman. Another piece of news is Disney's Strange World, which is their new animated movie. They actually lost a ton of money on it.
Okay,
They were
that
expecting it to make.
it wasn't marketed at all.
It really wasn't.
Let's be honest here. It was not marketed at all. I had zero clue this movie was coming out or what it was even about.
Well, I remember seeing the trailer like when I saw Lightyear. So I agree completely, but I also wonder if like the streaming has kind of ruined it, where if it's like, well, that was really nice when we were able to just watch Disenchanted last week at home. I don't want to go to the theater
Yeah.
for
May,
something that's not, a Marvel movie.
perfectly plausible, but I don't know. Like, so apparently it's got characters that are LGBTQ in it. So there's also like a thing like, oh, maybe Disney just put this out as a way to check a box and not really market it, which maybe that's
What?
true to an
I
extent.
don't
I
think
don't
that would be the
think
case.
that's
I
fully
don't know.
true, but I'm not sure. I'll be honest, I
I
had
think it's just
no
harder to market things now.
yeah, I had no idea this came out. The only way I found out it came out was because I didn't realize Jake Gyllenhaal was in it until I saw a really awkward interview with him. And
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Um, I do have one more thing that I was actually writing this down for our We Messed Up. Last week, I was talking about how I read different articles and watch different videos to prepare. So I did want to give a shout out to the four main videos, people on YouTube that I do follow. If you ever want to, are like, oh, that was interesting. I'd like to know a lot more. Emergency Awesome, Heavy Spoilers, Comics Explained, which is a former guest, Rob from Comics Explained, and Screen Crush. Screen Crush is probably one of my favorites with Ryan Arey. I follow him on
yeah.
Twitter too. He's the dude that made the comment about how hard Black Panther was going to be for everybody because we're all mourning the character, the actor.
Which
Um,
today recording this is Chadwick Boseman's 46th birthday, so it's
damn.
tough. It's tough. But yeah, go give those people a follow. We will be back in just a moment. We are going to dive into our first Christmas film of the season, Die
Woohoo.
Harder, aka Die Hard 2. We will catch you in a jiff. Welcome back, everybody. As I said, we are about to talk some Die Harder, aka Die Hard 2, starring none other than Bruce Willis. However, we got some things to talk about first. Our man Shawn from the Cheap Seat Reviews is here to join us. So, Shawn, welcome to the podcast, my man. Tell us, what is your geek origin story? How did you get into movies? Give us a little bit of background. Tell us about your show, and welcome to the podcast, man.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. And yes, I am naked doing yoga while we do this thing. So I just wanted you to know that.
Yes, I was hoping somebody would be. I thought about doing the same thing.
Yeah. No, again, thank you so much for having me on. We I'm host of Cheap Seat Reviews, the podcast that explores the Hollywood film industry for the greater good. And I'm stoked to have you guys here. So this is a lot of fun. My geek origin story, that's kind of fun. It's just, I think it's like a lot of people's, right? Like their dad, right? It's like I grew up in a house where my dad was a big fan of Star Trek and Star Wars, and we had all those movies on VHS. And I was an only child, so if it was raining outside and you couldn't go outside and play, you were in the house watching movies. And so there was about Star Wars that I could choose from, and I just watched them over and over and over again. I mean, it's just you just put the tape in, go, and then rewind and just start over. I mean, I probably watched the Star Wars trilogy and kind of the Star Trek trilogy, 2, 3, and 4, each of those 20 times easily
Yeah.
as a kid. So yeah.
The tape for those who might be listening that don't know what he's
Just
talking about. The
thinking
tape.
that.
Once upon a time, believe it or not, we actually had to pop these things in. They're like mini bricks. Shout out
Yeah.
to my Star Wars fans, bricks. And we had to put them in a VCR and actually rewind the tape. You couldn't just hit the button and it starts
Well,
over
did you have a
again.
fancy rewinder? Like the rich kids had the thing, like the separate rewinder where you could put it in and push it down, and sometimes it looked like a car or
Oh
something.
yeah, I know what you're talking
No.
about.
We
I didn't
never
have
had
that.
one.
No, no,
I had
absolutely
friends who had one.
No, definitely we definitely didn't have that either. It was just,
Wait
you just
and rewind in the
you just
VCR.
yeah,
Oh
you just
God. Such
it is what it was. I did have some friends that had those fast ones, right? They could like rewind a tape in
Yeah.
about 25
I probably
seconds.
stole
Maybe
it from Blockbuster.
that was yeah, possibly. I don't know.
Well, I
But
felt like old school to pull out Die Hard too. I'm like, I don't want to pay for this. It wasn't on any free streaming service, so I had to find a burned DVD
I
in
saw you
the
sent me
like,
that picture. Yes.
yeah. But it was like in like an old CD case, that you used to keep in your car. Like we have a
yeah,
whole thing of
God,
DVDs.
so many remix and mix CDs for ex girlfriends in those CD cases. It's like unlocking my
Actually, I think my
past.
ex boyfriend had burned Die Hard 2 for me, so I think
See,
that's
folks, if you really love her, you'll send
where I
them.
got it
You won't make mixed
from.
CDs. You're gonna burn DVDs. Okay. Oh gosh. Well, tell us about Cheap Seat Reviews real quick, though. You guys do a really fun show over there, which we
yeah.
actually guested on. For those who might
Oh,
not
I have
have caught
CDs from
that,
him still too. I still listen to CDs in the car sometimes.
oh, welcome to the conversation. Oh no, to my
Review podcast. We just released episode. Oh,
I think I
am I
froze.
not
Hold on. Yeah,
here?
go ahead. You're good. You're good. Go ahead and just start from the top again. Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Um, yeah, we're Cheap Seat Reviews. We've been around for a while. We're coming up on 9 years. And we just released
That's
episode
impressive.
423. We did a whole month on Star Trek. So we've done all 12, no, 11 Star Wars films, and we've done about half of the Star Trek films. And so we just did a month of Trek, and it was a really it was a fun month. And now we're looking forward to December. But yeah, we're Cheap Seat Reviews, cheapseatreviews.libsyn.com. There you can find links to all our stuff.
That's impressive, man.
And it's funny.
Years.
Yeah, 9 years. It was just one of those things where it was like a lot of podcasts, it was like a bunch of dudes that we all like would hang out. Basically it started, we were 4 college roommates, right? And then 2 around each other. And then so the sisters on Black Friday would go out and be insane and brave the masses. So the guys would go watch movies. We would spend the whole day at the theater, avoiding the craziness. And so afterwards, we just go and talk about whatever movie we watched. And finally, Sam, my co-host, was like, "Hey, we really should just record this and put it on a podcast." And so that was sometime in 2013, and back then, responses podcast, how to start a podcast. So we just started figuring it out, and we just started recording stuff, and we just haven't stopped. So
that's impressive. Yeah, I mean, before podcasts were even cool, before anybody knew what podcasts were back then, you guys are like the OGs. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Impressive. So,
yeah, I appreciate that. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying, talking about Die Hard and not being able to find it. I just happened to have the box set Blu-ray of the trilogy, so I was good.
Nice.
Look at that. Yes, that is another lost art. I miss having DVDs. That's one thing I really miss having.
Well, this was the Blu-ray, but yeah.
Well, yeah,
I don't.
I do.
So when I was getting my DVD out, you got to switch it over, and like that doesn't work on the Fire Stick. And then we have the world's slowest DVD player. It's a pain in the ass.
I got a PlayStation, so I can still do that stuff.
Well, then there was a part I kept wanting to like rewind for a second, and it's like that doesn't work so well on the DVDs.
Yeah.
It's like jumps back.
That's very, very true.
Bunch.
But well, shall we? Let's dive into it.
Back in time with that crap.
Let's dive into it. So we have Die Hard 2, Die Harder, if you will, Too Fast, Too Furious style, To Die, Too Harder. It came out in July 2nd of 1990, believe it or not. So this movie's older than I am, barely, just
dumber.
But it stars Bruce Willis, of course, and you could rent this on Stars or Amazon. I paid the $4 to rent this on Amazon, believe it or not, today. I was like, you know what? First world problems. I don't have it anywhere else. I got to rent this on Amazon. So I did so. And
you didn't have a DVD to dust off?
Nope, I didn't. I was sitting there at work and I was like, you know what? On the government dime, I'm watching Die Harder. And I rented that bad boy and went to town.
He's just kidding.
For legal purposes, this is a joke. But seriously.
These are the jokes, kid.
This movie takes place a year after his heroics in Los Angeles. Detective John McClane is mixed up in another terrorist plot, this time at Washington Dulles International Airport, which, if you've ever been to that airport, the only terrorism happening there is actually the traffic getting in and out of the pickup line. But that's a whole other conversation for a different time. Anyways, he's waiting for his wife, Bonnie Bedelia. That's not her name. That's her real name in real life. And
Holly.
That same night, yes, Holly. Their same night, South American Politico and drug profiteer Ramon Esperanza, played by Franco Nero, is arriving into the United States he's in custody. As they so profoundly say, the war on drugs has just taken its first prisoner in the film. John McClane then takes action when a treasonous ex-colonel, played by William Sadler, seizes control of the airport, threatening to crash every inbound flight unless Esperanza is freed. So, Lauren, I'm going to start with you. When was the first time you remember watching this movie aside from today on your burnt DVD?
Oh gosh, years ago. I don't know.
Was
I
it
mean,
one of
I
those
don't
like you
remember
sought
watching it as a
out?
kid.
Did you seek it out, or is it like, oh wow, this just happens to be on? You get sucked into television because back on then it was like what TNT plays all these or
Well,
whatever.
I never had cable growing up though. My mom was a single mom and then I was a single mom, so there was no cable growing up. I think I sought it out. It was, Die Hard I had obviously seen multiple times and finally it was okay, let me watch these other ones. So I actually do remember that. And so it was probably the early 2000s. I remember watching Die Harder and then Die Hard with a Vengeance. And then probably not too much before Live Free or Die Hard came out.
Mm.
So, but the first Die Hard, I mean, I saw that in the 90s at some point.
Oh yeah, excellent. Shawn, what about you, man? When did you first witness the greatness that was this film?
Well, being significantly older than you, I so I saw this. I mean, not that long after it came out. So I was 8 when this movie came out. So probably I don't know. I was probably 13 or so when this thing came out. I had a good friend of mine, and frankly, my parents didn't care if I watched R-rated movies. I watched Aliens with my
Likewise.
dad when I was like 10
My
when
mom
I
took me
watched
to see
Aliens.
Terminator in the theater.
Yeah. Uh,
I'm still
so
traumatized.
in '84.
Maybe it was T2
Oh,
because I
okay.
remember. So I think I was like 6 or something. I don't know the exact. I could do the math on that, but I remember going to a Terminator movie with her.
That's cool. So
It
yeah,
wasn't a time.
so we watched these movies. We watched this trilogy. My friend Steven and I, we would watch these movies all the time. So I mean, middle school and high school, I watched all of these. Now, uh, you might not get this joke, Lauren, because you said you didn't have cable.
I
But
had friends who had cable.
sure. So there's a famous, very famously, when they dubbed the when they cut out all the swears for the TNT and whatever broadcast, he says "Yippee ki yay, Mr. Falcon."
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, which is one of the best overdubs ever because it's clearly not Bruce Willis talking, like not even close. But I'm going to sidetrack here just a second if I can. There's
Oops.
a so the new DuckTales cartoon that's out.
DuckTales. Woohoo. Yeah.
So there's a new one to 3 seasons. It's great. And it was made by people our age that grew up watching this stuff. So it has all this other fun pop culture references
Oh, that's
aimed at, us, right? And so there's one of the episodes where there's literally he's a falcon and he is like a spy and he's fighting the team. And right when they're getting ready to win, Launchpad actually says "Yippee ki yay, Mr. Falcon,"
that's
and
amazing.
then launches. So I start cracking up. Right, I'm losing my mind, and of course, no one in my family understands why.
Everybody's
So I had
side
to
eyeing you
stop the
like what?
episode. Yeah,
Like
well,
it wasn't that funny.
yeah, like the kids have no idea. They're just like, because my kids are 10 and 6, so they're just enjoying the cartoon. But my wife's like, why is this funny? So I had to pull up YouTube to find Yippee ki yay, Mr. Falcon, and she goes, really? And I said, yeah, they made a reference to Die Hard.
In this house,
You
we
know?
have
That's
deep
awesome.
cuts, okay? We have deep
Yeah.
cuts.
Well, they did a whole episode. Like I used to watch the Goldbergs when it first came out, and they did a whole episode on when Die Hard came out. And the first one, I think it was a different dub, but it was something ridiculous. Didn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Well,
So anyway, I'm glad you get that reference because that was gonna be my middle. I was gonna introduce myself as saying hi, yippee ki yay, Mr. Falcon, and I thought you might not get that reference and it won't be funny.
it is a good pool, man. And a lot of people too with this movie. So obviously the line is famous from the original Die Hard, the very first one, which is, I guess, more in your face, a Christmas style film. But a lot of people don't realize they always forget this one. I feel like this film's forgotten because then we
This
all
one is
just
my least favorite. I will say that, other than the one
it's
with his
fair.
son.
It's very forgotten because I know my mind tends to jump to the Samuel Jackson, Die Hard 3 with Samuel Jackson in New York and the things that go on there. But
The puzzles.
Die Harder is actually it takes place during Christmas time again. Like they're getting back together for Christmas. There's somebody on Twitter, I forget who it was now off the top of my head. I got to write this down next time. But they're like I judge movies if it's a Christmas movie by if there's Christmas music that plays. They play Christmas music in the beginning in the airport. So I'm like, there we go, Christmas movie right there. The lights, the snow, it's a Christmas movie. Maybe it's not so in your face Christmas
Here's
movie, but it still
what I
counts.
don't get. Everybody considers It's a Wonderful Life a Christmas movie, and it is only Christmas like the last 5 minutes of the movie. I hate that movie. I cannot
I
stand that movie.
don't like that movie at all
Apparently, it
personally.
didn't do great. And like some network was like, let's put it on at Christmas because they were able to buy the rights for it for cheap or something. And it suddenly became this. I mean, the guy's a jerk the whole movie. And then everybody just forgives him with open arms at the end. I haven't seen it in years. Maybe I'm forgetting it or, forgetting or remembering it incorrectly. But if that's a Christmas movie, Die Hard and Die Hard 2 are without a doubt Christmas movies.
I'm saying
I
they
will
take
die
place
on
at
that hill.
Christmas time. We got Christmas music, we got Christmas lights. It counts in my opinion. Just because you don't see Santa Claus or anybody giving gifts, it counts.
We got Christmas jokes.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? What do you think about this being a Christmas movie? Because I know you tend to agree with us on this.
No, I'm all for it. And it's funny because you're right, this kind of is the forgotten movie. It is like there's the first one and then there's the third one, and people kind of forget about this one. And which is interesting because it was a while ago, probably a year and a half ago, I was with some friends, and we were talking about Die Hard and whatever, and I commented that Die Hard 3, my order would be Die Hard 1, then 3, then 2,
Oh
then the
yeah, that's
rest.
fair.
And they said, no, Die Hard 2 is way better than Die Hard 3. And I thought, what? No. Samuel Jackson and all that stuff, like, I mean, that movie's funnier, like he's
Oh
driving the
yeah.
cab through Central Park and he's like, are you aiming for this people? No. Well, except maybe that mime. Like, that's a funny bit. So I then put a Twitter poll in the field. Which one would you rather watch, Die Hard 2 and Die Hard 3? We had like 70 people respond, and it was like a 50-50 thing. I
Wow.
was really shocked at how close it was. I would have bet money, like real money, that it would have been like 75-25 Die Hard 3. So back to your point though, is this a Christmas movie? I think it fits just as much as a Christmas movie as Die Hard 1. No, there's not a Christmas party, but he's there because it's Christmas break. And
Right.
and this is funny because I watch most of my movies with my wife.
Yeah.
And so when she asked me about 2 hours ago, she says, what are you guys going to talk about tonight? Just, besides the movie. And I said, well, one of the topics is going to be, is this a Christmas movie? And she says, no, it's not. And I said, yes, it is. And she says, there is absolutely nothing with Christmas in this movie. And I said, what? Like, I was blown away. And then she had completely forgotten that he was there because Christmas break. She had forgotten all this. I even said, what about the line where he says, I got a freaking reindeer flying in?
Yes. Yes.
Like, yeah, you did say that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she says, I'm gonna be honest with you, I wasn't paying attention. That's fair.
It's
So
fair.
I did a poll on Instagram. So for Die Hard 1, I got 10 votes for Die Hard 1 and Die Hard 2. For Die Hard 1, 9 out of 10 people said yes, it's a Christmas movie. For Die Hard 2, 6 out of 10 people said yes, which I do find that interesting because I feel like they both you got the snow and you got the the airport on Christmas. I mean, that's
there's the whole Christmas traveling. You really do. And you got to think a lot of Christmas movies. Like there's Christmas movies where they're traveling across the country trying to get home. They don't ham fist a Christmas in that a lot of the time either. Like Santa Claus might not be in that, Rudolph, all that kind of stuff. So very well, like just you classify those movies as, hey, it's Christmas because of the fact that they're getting home for Christmas. They're getting this for Christmas. Well, in Die Hard 2, Holly and John are getting the family together for Christmas. So it's kind of like a she's trying to get home for Christmas. There just happens to be terrorists taking over the airport.
let's see if they had named it I'll Be Home for Christmas. Like we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Exactly. Jonathan Taylor Thomas, Jessica Biel. There was a whole he's going across country. He dresses like Santa Claus. They count that as a Christmas movie. Okay, maybe we could have had John dress in a Santa suit and taken down terrorists. That would have added to the flair, but nonetheless, it still counts in my opinion.
I think the argument for some people is if the premise of the movie isn't based on Christmas.
That's fair.
Or a Christmas classic like, we just watched Spirited. Like that's not really about Christmas. It just happens to take place on Christmas. but because it's based on A Christmas Carol, which is a Christmas classic, and you have the Ghost of Christmas Past and this and that, it's like you could do that with your birthdays every year or Easter or just, 4th of July. It doesn't have to be Christmas. The only reason they're saying Christmas, I guess, is because in the past there's parties and whatnot, but it's not about, maybe I'm going too far. I don't know.
I really just need to see like an animated film where John McClane takes on the Grinch at Christmas time.
McClane had plans.
He's saving Whoville from the Grinch, but let's kind of dissect this movie a bit. There were some things, the naked yoga.
Before we start, I did look up that Goldberg thing. I don't know if this is accurate, but in the first one, the dub was Yippee Ki Yay Melon Farmer.
Okay, Melon Farmer. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Mr. Falcon, I think is for some reason is more recognizable, but yeah, I do think
Melon Farmer.
Melon Farmer. I like that.
Yeah, but yeah, good. Mr. Falcon you hear more often.
Those are good, but
I think because sometimes they just don't say the part and they just mute it. Whereas I feel like they've kept the dubbed in Mr. Falcon. I could be wrong, but that's just my hypothesis.
I need to go ahead.
I would say I think the Mr. Falcon is just simply more fun.
I mean, it definitely is. Oh yeah.
I mean, melon farmers. I mean, they could be fun. I don't know. I've never been to a melon farm.
Yeah, I haven't either. But like, it would have also been great if like his name was actually Falcon, like he was Colonel Falcon. So then at least the dub makes sense,
right?
As opposed to him just saying Mr. Falcon because we know he's saying MF.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't even know.
I don't know. This movie though,
anything could have been better.
Yeah, I mean anything. Well, they just had an M and an F. Like what other words can we say that have M and F? Oh yeah, Mr. Falcon. There we go. Yeah, dub that line. Get the janitor on the case.
Yeah. Like I said again, it was not Bruce Willis.
It definitely was not Bruce Willis.
Like I don't understand that either. Like they bring them in for ADR. Like the actors have to do ADR. So while they're in the studio, oh, by the way, we need you to say something other than, the phrase here. We say something, like, was like Bruce busy with Demi that day? Like, I don't understand.
Well, Bruce Willis, he was kind of known to be a diva. So maybe he was just like, I'm not going to take the swearing out of this movie and just be grouchy Bruce Willis.
It's just really strange. I don't know. It's just, it's really weird to me.
This movie really ham-fists the 90s. For a movie that probably was filmed in 89 but was released in 1990, they sure do a great job. Like the airphone where she's like, wake up and smell the 90s, and like,
oh my gosh,
my wife just really wants me to embrace the 90s. I'm like, just the technological advances of having an airplane phone and beepers and
the fax machine,
and look at where we're at now. Like there's a couple times where John McClane, I don't care if you're a cop, he just goes up and kind of not assaults the airport workers, but he just goes up and like takes her phone and takes like her fax machine over and stuff like that. And he's just,
well, the one girl like hit on him after that.
Yeah. Like this is a very, very nice, like people are smoking in the airport. There is zero security at all.
He was the good guy.
You're just walking into baggage claim areas where they're running the baggage belts and things. It's like, wow, this was life back in the day.
Like he walks into the tower, which towers
nonchalantly
just walks into the tower, and then the media lady walks in there, the news reporter. She just walks in. It's like, shouldn't there be many locked doors between the public
coded doors?
Yeah,
well, this is pre 9/11 too, which is so interesting to watch any movie in an airport before 9/11.
Oh my gosh! I mean, like the grandma with the taser.
Yes, and her purse on the plane.
Not only did she bring the taser on the plane, she talks about testing it on her dog. She talked about how she tried it on her dog and the dog like seized up and stuff. I'm like, oh my god.
The poor thing limped for a week.
Yeah, like, oh my god.
Was that where tasers actually allowed on planes in the 90s? Was it just like,
it was lawless apparently. She brought a taser, but this old lady was ready. Like Holly over there's got the phone and just vibing, and the old lady pulls out her taser. She's like, I tested it on my dog.
Well, so I can. So pre 9/11. So here's a story for you. So when I was doing, we did a mission trip in high school, and we flew to the Navajo reservation in New Mexico, and we were told to bring with us 2 paintbrushes and a hammer. Well, most of us knew to put it in our suitcase, but about a handful of people put it in their carry-on, and they're like, "You can't bring a hammer on an airplane." and this would have been 98, 99. So I mean, maybe in those
There were
8 years
some
we
rules.
decided that, yeah, some rules. But I mean, even John McClane in the first one, which is 88 or I guess 89. I mean, he's got his sidearm on him
That's
on the
true.
airplane,
Yes, that is
which
true.
is, that's when the cop looks, or the other guy looks at him and he kind of gives him that look. And he's like, "It's okay, I'm a cop. I've been doing it for 11 years." It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
but you
but
still can't bring your gun on a plane, sir.
yeah, like even sky marshals aren't armed. It's just really interesting. So
But that's
Huh.
John McClane's whole thing, though. Like, there's even sequences where just his whole thing is like, I'm a cop. I've been doing this. Like, when he gets caught in the baggage claim area, he's like, "You're going after the wrong guy." And like, "Where's your badge?" And he doesn't have his badge and he gets off scot free, basically. And then the elevator, he's like, "I've done this before." But like, how bad of luck do you have to be in the same spot as two terrorist attacks a year apart?
yeah,
He does make that joke though.
They do at
yeah.
the
He's
end.
like,
She's like, "Why does this keep happening to us?"
Well, and he
no,
makes
he said it in
too.
like
Yeah,
middle of the movie. He said something along the lines of, "What are the odds this happens to the same guy twice?"
yeah. And then he says, "Oh, I mean, another basement or another crawl space and another vent." Like he's. I mean, the movie is kind of self-aware that it's
Yeah,
making a sequel.
At least he had shoes this time,
It's true. It
and
was a
a coat, keep nice and warm. But
he didn't need a
yes,
coat in L.A.
that's true. It was just there's so much with this movie. So we have the treasonous colonel, played by William Sadler. He's doing naked yoga, watching himself on the news in his hotel room. Like,
Why was he naked? So
I'm still very confused to this day, like why that room is so musty. Like, you just see that scene and it's just looks like it's
really
humid and
stank in that room.
musty and
I tell you
disgusting.
what, if I looked as good as he did at that age, I'd probably be naked all the time too.
I
I'm
mean,
just
that's
to be
fair.
honest.
Here's
He
the
Absolutely.
was,
thing though, and you guys would know better than me, and I actually said this to my husband and he just kind of shrugged. To me, if you're a dude and you're working out naked, that would be like me jogging without a sports bra. That just seems like
well, it's not like
uncomfortable.
he
He's not
wasn't
running
running,
around
you
outside
I
know.
know, but
naked.
still he's exercising. So wouldn't, and he's hot. So wouldn't things like flap around in places you may not
Again,
want
he's
them to?
he's he's doing yoga. He's not like doing jumping jacks. Like
Yeah, he's not. Yeah,
All
there's
right.
no risk of damage or whatever.
I mean, yoga can get intense.
I guess, but I
I mean,
do
if
see
you
your
quickly
point.
go from like downward dog to like jump forward into a plank or something.
I mean, you're not wrong. And they do the anti trope where instead of he shoots the TV, he just aggressively uses the remote.
yeah,
What a common
very
sense thing to
aggressively.
do.
Yeah, because usually in movies, like the bad guy would grab a gun and shoot the TV.
I know. It's so
They do that.
stupid.
They do that
Oh,
a
he
lot.
does.
So
And then,
here's actually one of my fun facts. So that actor asked if he could film that scene towards the end of filming so that he had time to work out
hey,
so he could look
look,
like that.
I got respect for that. Like, you're gonna be doing a naked scene. I'm
It's
pumping.
like,
I'm
I
doing
need some time.
steroids. I'm doing everything
Yeah, yeah,
without a doubt.
So my first note though was, why did we hate cops from LA so much back then? Is it,
This, yeah, there was
Maybe
some
it's like a thing where
animosity.
maybe all cops hate cops in other cities. I don't know. Is that
it's
like a
it,
thing?
I don't know, because the whole movie, well, not the whole movie, but I mean, so at the beginning of the movie, he's like, "Come on, I'm a cop. I'm from LA." And he's like, "Yeah, I went to LA. I didn't like it. I'm going to give you 5 tickets." It was like, what? And then the police chief later he goes, "I'm going to give your commander in LA a freaking recommend like they hate cops from LA, and like even McClane hates it." He goes, "Look, I'm a cop from New York, but my wife lives out in LA." Like even he's embarrassed
Well,
to be an LA cop.
to be fair, like
Right.
in real life, wasn't this like the LA race riots were going on around then? So there was a lot of tension going on
It
I
was
back then.
think
April
So maybe
so.
that
26th,
had to do with it.
1992.
Okay, well,
So it was
there's a lot of
before then.
tension. It was,
Yeah.
but still, you have tension that builds up to it, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I get that. It did feel like for some reason, in the TV and the movies in the 80s and 90s, like New York was this dirty, dangerous, scary place, and cops from LA are, but also the trope that cops can't drive.
Oh yeah, oh
I
yeah.
don't understand. He's like, "Okay, tally ho," and then he just crashes into a cab. It's like, did you not? How could you not see that yellow boat of a car?
There's so much property damage that happens in these two movies. It's
Yeah,
insane. Like,
it
nothing
really is.
just crashes; it explodes outrageously.
Oh,
I think Live Free or Die Hard made it like that was like the extreme one, like the freaking highway is like falling and he's falling down the highway and he has no road rash, but the whole street is
yeah.
destroyed or the whole highway.
And he's in a Harrier jet or something. My
Yes.
favorite.
No, it's the
My
F-35 at that point.
oh, okay, fair.
Yeah.
The Raptor. Yeah, I guess it was the 2000s. The the part that I love was the plane is like, hey, we're on fumes, we have to land, and then it lands a crash land a plane, which again in post 9/11 is still a little cringy, I guess. But they that that thing explodes like it's made of explodium.
Exploding.
That
I mean,
plane,
that thing.
okay,
That's a
yes.
phrase we use on cheap seats. Is like if something explodes that doesn't need to explode. Yeah.
Oh, that's not a scientific term.
No,
Well, okay, having worked with
but
I
well,
love that.
thing hit the ground. It was,
having worked with jet fuel like in the military and stuff like that, like it doesn't ignite the way this movie makes you think jet fuel ignites in
yeah,
any fashion. Like, does it combust and blow up? Yes, it does. But that plane is not crashing like that and then just blowing up for no reason. Like, you're losing your wings and you're probably breaking the plane in half, but it's not just exploding, killing all 230 passengers.
yeah.
Right. Like instantly.
It is a bit
But it's
ridiculous.
the '90s and the late '80s. Like everything has to explode. I mean,
Very
it's
true.
just that's the way it is. And Commando is the
Oh
grenades
God,
that he
I
throws
love that
into
movie. Hey
the
Bennett,
it,
you're
it,
gonna give some steam.
Commando's great. but like when he takes those two grenades and then throws them into the barracks, those things light up like it's a nuclear explosion. It's like grenade. Like, did they store gallons of fuel in there? Like, grenades don't do that.
Not
But
at all.
it
And
was
then
fun.
that makes, like, in this movie, everybody who gets shot in dramatic fashion. Like, there's the scene in the church where the guy's like, I feel like a piece of me is dying. And
Oh
they're
my
like, he
gosh.
turns around and shoots him and he just like, falls back
He's like, you're not
dramatically.
wrong there. There was a couple cheeseball murder lines.
There were, and
Yeah.
Was
then
the
Well,
other
there's a
one, hey asshole, what do I look like? A sitting duck? And the bad guy who's the Terminator guy from T2 is like, as a matter of fact, you do, or something like that.
it,
It's like, do you
no,
think
he's
bad guys actually say these lines before they
I
kill
would if I
people?
was a bad guy. Like,
I hope
you're
they
right.
not
do.
catching me without saying some really cheesy lines, without a
Oh yeah,
doubt.
you're gonna get quipped to death before I shoot you.
Like,
Yeah.
if I was a superhero, I'm out here fighting crime every night. You bet your ass I'm talking shit like this, without a doubt. Like, that's just how
Yeah.
I go. And then you have the scene where all the cops show up on like the rooftop wherever, and they get ambushed and everybody's just spraying bullets. Like, how is there just no civilians getting shot or things? They're just spraying bullets
Maybe
and
they were stormtroopers.
every cop gets hit and they just like fall back through glass so dramatically and stuff. I'm just like, these are the worst cops ever. If this is your SWAT team, they don't train at all.
Yeah, those cops did suck. I mean, McLean is the only one that really ever hits anyone that he's actually aiming at. I mean, he's laying on the ground, and there's a guy that has the high ground from concealment, and he can't hit him with a MP4, MP5, something like that. Like,
Yeah.
I know he's got plot armor, but can we make it a little bit more believable? But it's fine.
Right.
Just
It's like they
nonstop.
just want him to look better than everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yes,
So
because this cop is going to be better than these. These guys are trained. I mean, these are soldiers, right? These are
Right.
trained soldiers, but it's fine.
and
They're cannon fodder.
everybody's a traitor, but so to your point about everybody being trained military though, just the fact that everybody is trained military and there's so many military members and they are so ready and they just turn heel so fast. They're all traitors. Like the badass major that shows up, he's like, I taught him everything he knows and all of that good stuff. Turns out they're all shooting blanks at each other and they're just all in this together. It's like 45 troops. And it's just like, geesh. I mean, first of all, you're like a major getting paid pretty good money. Like, I can understand low life troops, but these officers that are so ready to betray their country over a little extra money, I'm like, geez.
Now, I've seen this movie easily 20 times, easily, maybe more. I still don't really know why they betray their country.
I have no idea.
Like, because William Sadler talks about how we're going to protect our way of life and things like that. And I don't understand. Like, is this just about money because they're going to free this guy? Is it what's the political statement here? That the war on drugs is a failure? I don't understand. I mean, seriously, like I have seen this movie so many times and I enjoy it for what it is. I mean, because the first movie is just simply a heist. We know what Hans is for. He's just there to steal stuff.
Yeah.
But like, is this a political thing? Like, I don't know. I've seen this movie so many times and I still don't know what his motivation was to be willing to kill hundreds of people to to
there's never any clear motivation stated out at all. You're right, he gives some BS answer, but it's never like, okay, you're betraying your country for a drug lord. Why? Especially as a colonel in the military. Again, you're gonna be well off, like your retirement age maybe. So you could very easily just retire and go live on a beach if you really wanted to. I'm not sure what the reason is at all.
Right. He made some response about like, well, treason just depends on the year. It was some quote from somebody. I remember that. So it was like, well, you got a point, but
So unstable.
that's all you have right there.
But I mean, like, so John Amos, who was the major that shows up later with the assault team, right? They're chatting around, and I love John Amos. He's great. I know him mostly from The West Wing.
Yes.
And so when this new guy, the radio guy, he's like, "Man, I wish I was with you guys in Panama or wherever it was." And he's like, "Yeah, I wish that too." And then he slits his throat. So obviously something happened when they were there, right? Like they were on a mission, right? Maybe they were doing something in Esperanza, whatever his name is. He shows up and he's like, "Hello, I will pay you billions of dollars if you set me free one day if I'm ever caught," or something. Like something happened there for this whole team to go, you know what? I bet you one day we're gonna betray our country, and I'm cool with killing a lot of civilians for some money. All right, I'm down with that. We're all good with that. Cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, they're blowing up planes and they're keeping planes in the air, like straight domestic terrorism. And for
Oh,
what?
right. They're killing kids and old people and everything.
Yeah.
Like at least Ed Harris in The Rock, he had a point. He had an objective, and the only people he killed were soldiers. So at least he was, at least he kind of had a moral compass ish,
Yeah, I do. Did anybody notice? I do have a point. Speaking of killing lives, they made a point to show that plane that crashed and blew up was full of British people.
Yeah,
it wasn't like American lives that were killed. It was British people.
So it didn't matter as much.
Yeah.
Well, it was just thought it was interesting. I never really paid attention until when I watched it today, and I was like, huh, they really make this a point to be like, wow, everybody's British on this plane. So do their lives mean less because they're not technically blowing up a plane of Americans? Like, what is the correlation here?
Maybe. I was excited to see Cole Meany on screen. And of course he would have to be, at least, if there might be more, I don't know, our Star Trek connection for the movie.
Yeah. Lauren, why don't you hit us with your fun facts real quick?
So the original Die Hard was a loose adaptation of Nothing Lasts Forever, which was a novel from 1979, written by Roderick Thorpe. Die Hard 2 is not actually a sequel to that book, but it is based on another book. So this one is based on the book 58 Minutes, a book by Walter Wagner. And it was basically a story about an aging cop who is waiting for his daughter's plane to land at JFK Airport when it is seized by terrorists. Much like trains, planes, and automobiles, which we talked about not too long ago, no airlines would agree to have their name used in this movie. So they had to do what they had to do in that movie and make up an airline, which I still find hilarious. Yes. Like, I'm not going to not fly on this airline because it was seized by terrorists and Die Hard.
Sorry, I watched the movie with Bruce Willis and Delta got taken over and I can never fly Delta now.
And that's how Delta, filed bankruptcy.
And I mean, I know we're laughing at it, but like Apple has in their contract, you cannot be a bad guy and use an Apple phone.
That's true.
I think I learned that on your podcast, actually.
Nice. And I just recently watched Shazam for another podcast I was on, and the bullies in that movie, no spoilers, but if you've not seen it, but there are two bullies that literally strike a child who is in crutches with the truck, and Ford was like, no, you're not going to put our logo. So they have to take the blue oval off the truck. So it's just a generic black truck that hits this kid. And
Wow.
yeah.
It is
I mean,
so interesting, these
Yeah.
contracts.
It does seem
and
like,
stuff.
yeah, we're not going to do that. But that is a whole thing of advertising. Like you do have those connections, whether it's subconscious or conscious. But I feel like that's just such an extreme one for like a terrorist organization to take over blame. I mean, maybe it was for the best because unfortunately that happened 10 years later.
Yeah.
But all right. So the scene when John McClane comes up to the airport runway and narrowly avoids being hit by an oncoming plane as it rushes by. So this was actually
C-130,
shot.
Actually,
What?
it was a C-130. Funny enough.
Oh, get some expert knowledge on this episode. So that scene was actually shot in 8 different locations. One was an underground tunnel in Grenada, a cockpit set in LA, and exterior shots of planes were filmed in the Mojave Desert, Lake Tahoe, San Francisco, and 2 different Michigan locations and Denver, Colorado
So
to put
much
all that
work
together.
for like 20 seconds of why didn't you just dip back into the sewer real quick and hang on as the plane goes over you?
I always have thought that too.
That's neither here nor there. He's struggling. He's about to get run over. It's like, dude, just shut the grate, let it go over you, and then hop out. What are we doing?
Yeah,
Making movie magic.
If it would have shown like his jacket was caught, so he couldn't do that, then it would create more tension. But like all he's doing is just creating peril for himself.
Exactly. He puts himself in this situation for absolutely no reason. Absolutely no reason at all. It's what are we doing?
Yeah.
So you guys were talking about cursing before, or we were talking about the yippee-ki-yay motherfucker. So there was supposed to be more fucks, but Fred Thompson complained about it. And it's still though, and they did cut down. They're like, wow, there are a lot of fucks in this. We need to pull back because it's literally taking away from the dialogue. And there were still 63 fucks a movie. And like I had it on when I was making dinner, and one of my kids, I think it was Kaylee, the older one, and she's like, what is this rated? And I was like, it's R. She's like, oh, okay. She's like, I thought it was like PG-13, but they just keep saying fuck.
Yeah. My wife said, boy, they like to say that word, don't they? And I said, yeah, it's the 90s. Yeah, they can, and they
Yeah,
can't.
and I mean that word doesn't bother me in the least, but I was still like, geez, you're like ruining the importance of the word if you keep saying it. It's not special anymore.
Well, it's not. It's like Wolf of Wall Street, right? Like the word word is used like once every 1.5 seconds or something like that. If you add them all up, or I can't remember what it is, but
it's something obscene like that. Yeah,
but I feel like that makes sense for that movie because they're a bunch of like D-bags. And that's something that those types of people would do because they want to come up like they're all ego. And I guess this movie was a lot of ego, but it just, I felt like in that moment, like it just, yeah, it was a bit too many. I mean, if it was too many for me, I feel like it was too many.
True.
All right. So the whole premise of the movie has.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna set the joke up. So what you're saying is that Fred Thompson had run out of fucks to give. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Poor Fred Thompson. So the whole premise of the movie has a big ass plot hole. The terrorists count on the planes running out of gas as they wait to land. And there was actually an air traffic controller named Dan Mooney said, quote, without even being told, all of those other flights would have redirected themselves to another airport. The pilots would wait about 20 minutes at most without communication, and then they'd go off to another airport, end quote.
I was thinking this the entire time because now there's just like 20 planes circling the same. You creating all this air traffic. They already can't see, no visibility. So they're already worried about running into each other. Yeah, they would have redirected in a heartbeat.
No.
Right. And even like the one when the flight attendant like looks concerned in the cockpit. It's like, are they really just going to be like, well, we're just going to keep going until we run out of gas?
Like circles. No, like you're in one of the biggest airports. There's a couple within 20 minutes flying distance away from you at this point. So you would have
like, worst case, find a field or something. Right. Good Lord. You're just going to fall out of the sky when you run out of gas.
Well, the movie tries to explain it away, right? Because the I don't know his name, but the guy that kind of seemed to know everything in the control tower, he's like, oh, we just got word that the other airport in Washington is closed. They're going to direct all their traffic here. It's like, okay, but Richmond isn't that far away, and neither is Baltimore.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
New
York City even is like a quick second right from there.
Oh, but it's Christmas.
Yeah, but there's so many other airports that they could get to that are, I mean, I've had to be redirected before because of weather and things, and it sucks, but Hey, there's a storm. The only time ever in my life where we circled the runway was at Atlanta, and this storm cell. I was probably 13, coming back from a trip to Alaska, and so we were circling because they were waiting for this storm cell to clear. And the captain was like, "This should only take a few minutes," and it was probably like 10,
Yeah.
maybe 15 minutes. It wasn't 2 hours, right? Like the movie that
Right.
has, so it was like 10 or
90 minutes
15
of
minutes.
fuel left.
It was
Right. No,
long enough though that it was long enough that by the time we landed, we missed our connection, so we had to spend the night. But like 20 minutes, again, not 2 hours.
no, I had to do that this summer flying home from New York. It's July in Florida. That's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like you can literally see the storm out the window. But yeah, I would hope we'd be redirected to Tampa if it was terrorists.
They definitely would. So,
all right. So many of the best lines from Die Hard were actually from Bruce Willis. So he was given free reign to ad lib in this movie as much as he wanted. John Leguizamo, who's very well known now, was not very well known in 1990, and he said he had a lot of his role cut because he's only 5'7", which is much shorter than a bunch of his co-stars. He stated the reason his role was significantly taken back and lines were given to other actors was because of this, and even the one line that he got ended up being dubbed over by another actor.
interesting.
I don't even remember him in the movie.
I don't remember him in the
didn't
movie
either.
at all. At all.
He's Burke. I mean,
Did not know he was even in this movie.
Was he a soldier? Like, what was he?
I have no idea. I didn't realize he was in this movie at all.
I just realized that most of the people only have one name. So John McClane, but you have Thornburg, Stewart, Esperanza, Grant, Lorenzo, Barnes, Marvin, Trudeau, Garber, Baker, O'Reilly, Burke. Like, these are just
they're just generic. They put a name in the name generator and whatever came out.
Yeah. That's really funny.
So John Amos, actually, who plays Major Grant from Good Times, Coming to America 1 and 2, the father-in-law of Eddie Murphy, he didn't like working with Bruce Willis, so the tension they had on screen isn't all acting, which is a reoccurring theme for anybody who works with Bruce Willis, apparently. There was a lot of fake snow that was used because Denver, Colorado was having a heat wave in the winter. If you've ever been to Colorado, you'll know that this isn't very unusual. It happens all the time. Production had to be stopped a bit for a massive blizzard, however, so it's funny how that works out. Right before this movie came out, NC-17 became a thing, and they were going to get it, so they had to make some deaths a less bit violent and got the R rating. And the last couple is, this is the only Die Hard sequel to feature characters from the original other than Bruce Willis, which we get the call back. He calls back to LA, faxes the fingerprints to our boy out there. What's up?
So the little girl who was in the first one that played his daughter, she actually tried out to play, is it Lucy and Live Free or Die Hard, but she lost to the girl who got it.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Well, it's like, isn't the girl that got it, isn't it Elizabeth Mary Winstead or something like that?
Yeah,
like,
Mary Elizabeth. She is, I mean, yeah, she is a big time.
She's like a legit actor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this little girl was probably like, oh, I was in that movie. Let me try again. It was like Disenchanted. I thought it was the same girl, and then I looked it up as a different girl.
I was actually wondering that, so I'm glad you brought that up from last.
Because she looked like her, but they did, the original little girl from Enchanted is in the movie. She makes like a cameo or something. I don't remember who she is, but she's like a background person.
Sweet. My last fun fact is that this movie is never actually called Die Harder, but some of the DVD releases included this tagline because it was on some of the original movie stuff. So
it is now. It's Die Harder now.
Wrap up this movie here. Let's talk about, go ahead.
I actually have a sad thing to wrap up. What is today's date? Is it the 29th? It's the 29th.
Today is the 29th.
So yesterday, the bad guy from the first movie, Clarence Gilliard, who played Theo, he passed away.
Oh.
So he seemed like he was born in 1955, 66 years old, passed away yesterday. I don't know why, but I felt like we needed to say that talking Die Hard. Just, kind of.
That's fair. Absolutely.
So pour one out for Theo. He played a hell of a great bad guy, and he really wasn't in too many movies. He's known for like Walker, Texas Ranger, Top Gun, and really not too much after that. But he was a good bad guy. He played really good evil.
Yeah.
He's living off that Die Hard money. He doesn't need to do anything else.
He's a really good agent.
But he was like enjoyed being evil.
Wouldn't you
Was
though?
was
I feel
he?
like that'd be the best job is playing an evil character in something.
Oh,
It does
sure.
seem fun.
I mean, that's what we talked about that, not to cross the streams here, but like when we were talking about Shazam the other night and how Mark Strong is almost like always a bad guy
It's
because he's
oh
just more
yeah.
fun,
Well, he's
because he
such an incredible human being. Sorry, but he's
But some people just look evil.
well, I mean, like he's such a good bad guy that like when you see him the first time you see him in The Kingsman, you're like, oh, he's gonna betray everybody and kill them all, and then he's like,
yes, yes, yes,
oh no,
yes.
he's a legit good guy. This
He's a
movie, this
ride or
is
die.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
That is a good point because like a lot of these people are so good at playing bad guys too. So, but then on the flip side, they're the nicest people in real life. It's
right.
just
Like
yeah,
Giancarlo Esposito.
yeah,
Like
the
he
nicest
plays
people in real
evil.
life.
So
But
and you hear that about Gary Oldman too. Like Gary Oldman's like the
yeah,
nicest guy, but like in all in the '90s and the 2000s, he was. I mean, he was a bad guy until Harry Potter. In my world, like because when they cast him in Harry Potter as the bad guy, I'm like, that's brilliant because you see him always as a bad guy, and then you put him in a role where you
he's
think he's the
black.
bad guy.
right.
He's
He played
not.
himself in Friends and he was just drunk.
However, this movie to kind of wrap it up, it's the most ridiculous thing. So they fly that helicopter. So after Espinosa gets down, there's the shootout, and everybody kind of has a big shootout. Turns out there's blank bullets after the even more better. That's not really proper English, but they have that great snowmobile chase that goes down, and it turns out there's fake bullets where he just like unloads on his fellow cop, and all the cops stand there, draw their guns, but don't actually fire a shot. Which it's
Yeah.
like, all right, in today's world, he would have been toasted in a heartbeat, but no cop fires a single bullet while Bruce Willis is just spraying blanks with that they don't know are blank bullets at this time. So it's like, all right, that's a choice. And then they fly a helicopter in with the news team to chase the plane down, and Bruce Willis hops off on the wing and then gets into like these epic fist fights and just rips open the fuel. And then one of the most ridiculous sequences of all time, in my opinion, after they fight, is he lights that jet fuel on fire, which it's not lighting like that. And it's certainly not racing up a runway. And it's certainly not going to catch the plane and blow the plane up. And then planes just aren't going to follow the flame trail and land right after this. So this whole sequence is just
There's two perfect lines of fire. That's where I go.
look, the
Yeah.
lines of fire. Then like everybody's just landing one after another. It's like, no, this is not what's going to happen. But what did you guys take away from like what did you guys think about during this final epic conclusion battle of how this movie ends?
Where clearly airports could be more efficient if they wanted to when it comes to landing.
Just light things on fire.
Light a fire under their ass.
Well, I mean, like it begs the question, like, well, why couldn't they see the other plane that exploded?
That was my other question too. They couldn't follow that plane's wreckage. Like
Yeah, I don't. It's
a lot of choices were made, and not to mention
They weren't
like,
emotionally ready yet.
something that I did write down in my notes was this is the second longest runway of all time, right behind Fast and Furious.
okay.
Because there's that sequence, and I think it's Fast Five, where they're in Spain and they're literally chasing the plane for like 20 minutes, the longest runway of all time. And then this movie, it's kind of the same. They're fighting on this wing. It takes you from the time you kind of go to take off, it takes a couple of minutes, where they're fighting for like 5-10 minutes on the wing of this plane. They're quipping at each other left and right. And it's just like, when is this plane going to speed up to take off? My goodness, how long is this runway?
Maybe if everybody carried a taser in their purse, the movie would have ended
Actually,
sooner.
Grandma taught us something. Bring a taser on board your plane. You would have ended that fight a lot faster.
Maybe
I
tasers just hadn't gotten on the list of things not to bring yet. Like the exploding charging phones. Like they were allowed at one point because people didn't know about them.
I do love the little bit that we get to bring back when Thornburg is like, I have a restraining order against her. I can't be within 50 yards of her. And so the stewardess was like, or the flight attendant, excuse me, was like, what did you do? I knocked out 2 of his teeth. Would you like some champagne? I love it. I love the callback. And that guy plays such a great dick, which is really good.
Yes.
And I also, the last couple notes that I have, I do like when John Amos is at the end when Carmine is, or whatever his name is, he's yelling at, McClane, get your ass back here or whatever. And then that's when John Amos was like, get this bureaucrat out of John McClane's face. I'm like, oh, he used bureaucrat as an insult. I love it.
It was good because like he's like, oh, I like John McClane, get him whatever he wants, and it turns out like, oh, he's just playing him the whole time, all that kind of good stuff. And then his death was pretty gnarly because he gets sucked into the intake, and which blows out like the engine briefly because and blood gets everywhere. And I was like, oh, that's probably like the best death in this whole movie. Like at least you went out kind of like that in a good way, not just getting shot dramatically.
Well, here's one last fun fact. I don't think we mentioned this. So the sequel did much better than the first one. It made 240.2 million worldwide, and the original only made 141.5. But I feel like that's because a lot of people didn't know better yet. And after seeing the first Die Hard, it was like, oh, that was really good. We're gonna go see the second one. So I thought that was pretty interesting because I feel like Die Hard. I mean, you can watch making of movies on Netflix or the movies that made us. Die Hard's one of them. It's a lot of fun to watch because it's one of those movies that like wasn't going to get made. And how dare you cast Bruce Willis? He's a rom-com kind of guy, and he can't do action. So there was a very low expectations for the movie, and obviously when there's low expectations, you're not lined up to go see the movie when it first comes out. So obviously the second one rode the wind coattails of the first one, so to speak.
Yeah, I never equate dollars to success because because Spider-Man 3 made $1 billion and it's a terrible movie.
Same with Avatar, but
yeah, no, I get you.
I'm just throwing jokes out there. It's all jokes, everybody.
Yeah, no, Avatar is fine. You like it or hate it. I like the non-blue version, which is called Dances with Wolves. But I think that's
I like
a better
the cartoon
film.
one, Fern Gully.
Fern Gully, yeah, it's the same movie. Pocahontas, it all goes back to the whatever. But it's right the same. But yeah, Spider-Man 3 made $1 billion because of how successful Spider-Man 2 was. And that's a bad movie.
Hey, gonna cry?
I mean, could you imagine life without Bully Maguire though? I mean, it just wouldn't be the same.
Oh god, you're right. It absolutely wouldn't be the same.
You're right about that.
As we wrap this film up though, do you have any final thoughts about this movie, about anything, and how this is definitely a Christmas movie?
First of all, I'll say this. I love the Die Hard franchise. Now, I've not seen the fifth one at all. I have no desire to see it.
The one with the sun?
Everything after Samuel Jackson just isn't worth watching. But
I kind of enjoyed the fourth one because I like Justin Long.
I like the fourth one, yeah.
And I like Timothy Oliphant is a bad guy. Maggie Q is a kung fu.
Justin Long.
Yeah, even Kevin Black is in it for some reason. Not Kevin Black. Come on, help me out. Clerks director.
Oh, Kevin Smith. Yes,
Kevin Smith. Yes. Thank you. Anyway, so there's some fun to be had in that movie. It's all right. But you're right. But this, it's definitely a Die Hard movie. It feels like a Die Hard movie. It is as ridiculous. It's more ridiculous than the first one. I mean, I guess if you're gonna do it, you have to go more. You have to have more ridiculous. I mean, it wasn't until this movie, because in the first movie, which I really love, is that there's like consequences to everything. I mean, he only has like his one magazine for his gun. Like when that's out, that's it. Like that matters throughout the movie. Whereas this movie, he's just reloading his pistol. Like how many magazines did he carry with him
to go pick up his wife?
To pick up his wife. Is that because of the Nakatomi incident? That's why he always carries like 16 mags in his.
I mean, would happen a year ago?
I mean, I guess you're right. It just like he never had to reload unless the movie needed a breath. Like, we need a moment for him to have some peril or to take a breath. So we'll have him reload now. And even the bad guys, those machine guns seem to have unlimited ammo, which is a product of the time. But back to the point though, I like this movie. It's a lot of fun. IMDb gives it a 7.1. I'm down for that. I think that's a good rating.
Yeah.
And you know what? This is as much a Christmas movie as the first one. I think the first one probably hammers it a little bit more in your face. But, it's a good time.
Do we know if the live reindeer made it?
Oh, they probably got blown up.
Yeah, it probably got blown up. It probably exploded itself.
Those reindeer probably blew up. Rudolph's nose probably was a bomb the whole time, and it just blew.
Yeah.
up the
See, if we
entire
had
chain.
seen the reindeer at the end, then this wouldn't even be an argument. That would have
That's
been
true. That's true. Lauren,
done.
final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun movie. It's my, I mean, what there's 5 in the franchise. It's my 4th favorite, so it's not the best one. I feel like it's just a little slow. And I think, you know, you're talking about the machine guns and everything. I think it was just we have to top the first one. You always have to top the first one.
Bigger, better.
And I feel like when they over push to top the first one, it doesn't even come close. I mean, most of the time sequels aren't better, but sometimes they are. Sometimes, even if they're not better, sometimes they're more fun. But I just feel like the first one is the best of all 5, hands down.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone that would argue that otherwise. Now, I will say that I do love the third one, and I haven't watched it in a long time, but
I haven't either. I'm due for a rewatch.
I am too. And honestly, it feels like if it wasn't for the fact that we've already done Die Hard for the podcast, it would have been a good month to do like the 4.
Oh, yeah.
Like back to back to back to back. Of course, none of them are streaming, but that would have been a lot of fun to do. Yeah. But I really like the third one. And the funny thing is, you know, in the movie, I know I'm going on a tangent, but you know, when they're doing the water jug bomb disarm thing, right? Yeah. My dad and I actually figured out how to do that, because in the movie they don't really tell you. They just magic upon, oh yeah, we just have to do this one thing. My dad and I figured out how to do it 2 different ways as just brain exercises as we were driving down the road. Well, I'm not going to do it, but it was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
Well, of course, come for the fun topics. Leave because you're getting bomb advice. But go ahead. Why don't you tell us all one last time, where can people find your podcast? Where can they find you guys at on social media?
Yeah, again, we're Cheap Seat Reviews, the podcast that explores the Hollywood film industry for the greater good. We're on all the social medias. And I say we, it's me. I'm the one that manages all of it. But Cheap Seat Cast is on Twitter and of course Facebook and Instagram. But if you want to get a hold of me, you want to talk to me, Facebook is Twitter is the best way. Just message me if you have a request. We're down for that. We got most of December are listener requests, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm really
Christmas movies.
Yeah, so we're doing. You guys just talked about Spirited. That's what our next movie is Spirited.
I'm excited.
And then, yeah, I am too. Not to bring 2 things too down. We've had some sad news in our podcast family, and so we've decided that we really need to have some fun. So we're doing Spirited, which just looks like a lot of fun, and then we're gonna do Wrongfully Accused.
Ooh.
Which is that Leslie Nielsen parody of The Fugitive. And we don't normally do those types of movies.
I was like, "Oh, this sounds dark."
No. This is it's a parody movie of The Fugitive. It's hilarious. It's my favorite.
As soon as you said Leslie Nielsen, yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, we are doing a Christmas Vacation. We're doing Christmas Vacation. And then our last movie of the month is Anna and the Apocalypse, which is a zombie musical.
Yeah, I've heard it. I've seen parts of that one, never the whole thing, but that's awesome. That's a really great month coming up. And everybody, hopefully, if you're listening, please check them out. It's a great show. A really great time. They really dive into some movies. They really talk about the movies and bring a really great, fresh take to a lot of the movies that we've grown up watching, or movies that you might not have seen. They do a lot of films that maybe you haven't seen before, like Anna and the Apocalypse isn't a very well-known film. So check that movie out, check out their podcast. And Lauren, any final thoughts?
So I opened 5 different beers. I did not drink all of them, or them all to the full. I didn't finish all of them, I promise, even if I'm stumbling over my words. So yeah, if you're not already following Beer in Front, give him a follow. Tonight I opened PBR, Blue Moon, Sam Adams Boston Lager, Fat Tire, and a Dogfish 90-minute, and we're rating all of them on aroma, appearance, taste, and overall flavor. So if I hate Blue Moon, it is terrible.
That's fine.
I am not a fan of it. Everything else is tolerable.
Of you recording with PBR. Maybe they'll sponsor an episode.
After I just said I hate Blue Moon, not PBR. I rated the PBR higher than the Blue Moon. That's how much I dislike it. But yeah, if you're into the beer, definitely give Beer in Front a follow, and stay tuned. I guess I'm gonna have to do this tomorrow too, because I got to turn these in soon. It's like a school assignment that I waited till the last minute to do.
Me too. I procrastinate so hard, but We
I
tasted
saved the
beers,
Guinness
we
for
judged
tomorrow.
beers, and so that's what that is all about. Everybody
Although
listening,
I
we
drink Guinness all
appreciate
the
you
time.
coming along, listening to our banter, our talk for Die Hard 2. Hopefully you guys, if you stick around, check out not only Cheap Seat Reviews, but Hops Geek News once again, everywhere you can find podcasts. Drop a review, subscribe, all that good stuff that sucks your soul out because you just feel like you're begging on the side of the road and it just takes a piece of your soul. But hey, guess what? We all need to get there somewhere and somehow. So thank you. If you guys have anything that you want to hear us talk about Christmas movie wise, let us know. I know we're going to do like a Christmas horror genre at some point. Maybe by this time next week, I'll have watched Violent Night, which I can talk about. And maybe we'll do something along those lines with not that movie specifically, but in that genre of Christmas films. Possibilities are truly endless. Shawn, thanks again, man, for hanging out with us. And until next time, yippee ki yay, Mr. Falcon.